Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita course. Thank you so much for joining. And I could say so many things, but one thing is I'm deeply indebted to you all for your commitment to reading and understanding Bhagavad Gita, and for giving me a chance to reread it yet again. If you all wouldn't be here, then I wouldn't, I would be doing something else, like, I don't know what, but, it gives me the inspiration to read it more deeply. I focus on how to give the best value to everyone. And it's a very enjoyable, preparation time for me. I thank you for that. And thank you for taking this message, or attempting to take this message of Lord Krishna seriously. So we will get started so that we can take it seriously even more with some prayers to Lord Krishna, to his devotees, to all the previous acharyas and gurus who have taken so much effort to explain this. I am just a parrot, or it is said that, I'm just a crow. When there is Mahaprasad, a crow may steal it, but you all are like Mahapurushas. You all are great people. Even if that little bit of prasad falls from the beak of the crow, you all gladly accept it and honor or eat the prasad of Bhagavad Gita. So thank you very much for listening to me, who is just trying to speak, eloquently, even though I'm just a crow. So we will start with these prayers so that we can all, hopefully I can speak properly and you all can understand properly. So I will share my screen and we will recite these prayers. So this is our famous website, vedabase.io, also vedabase.com. So you go to Bhagavad Gita here and go to the introduction. And these are the prayers. If the font is small, these are also in the introduction in your paper copy. Please keep your paper copy handy throughout the class and pay very, very careful attention. Anyway, I will say something after the prayers. And if you can recite fluently, feel free to recite in the room here, not on Zoom. On Zoom, please stay muted because there is a lag and it creates a lot of, it creates a noisy feeling. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. So we will get started now. I'll do a quick recap of what we discussed in the last session. I have a lot of material to cover. Chapter 2 is a long chapter, and this is a fast course. I myself am kind of, I've been reading Bhagavad Gita for a few years, like, 15 years perhaps, and I'm finding it fast. And I'm finding it very, very hard to slow myself down. I'm feeling very tempted to slow myself down, but I am committed to make it a faster course. But please be fully aware, I am 100% committed to doing a very, very, very thorough job. Okay, in whatever level we do, it will be thorough. So I have a request that you also please pay very careful attention. This is a very, very deep topic, deeper than quantum mechanics or whatever may be the highest, algebraic topology, or pick the highest, graduate level, PhD level course in the hardest area of study. I'm going to try and present it. I'm not trying to say this is inaccessible or it is hard, but your attentiveness, your attention will play a very crucial role to keep the pace. The most important thing are the links, how the subject matter is making progress. So if you miss a link in the middle, that might create a problem. So just your attention. There are just too many links to keep in your mind. Another thing for, don't make this just a Sunday thing. When you are home, try to read the Bhagavad Gita. The lectures, I am committed to posting them on the same day or within 24 hours. If needed, review them. A very nice devotee is also doing like chapterization, or what do we call it? Like timestamps to scan various aspects. Please take advantage of all those things. You have made a very strong commitment to study the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows when next in your life such an inspiration may arise. Make the best of this inspiration that is there and understand it. And the purpose of understanding is to get convinced about the material in the Bhagavad Gita so that you can apply it in your life. And ask questions. Please ask questions. If it were me, I would, out of the 2-hour class, I would do 1 hour class and 1 hour question. But either raise your hands, and best thing is to raise the hand in the Zoom so that I know that there is a question. Typically, I will take questions, or at least be ready to raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. If there's a quick clarification question, raise your hand. I will try to take a very quick question. Otherwise, we will keep all the questions at the end. And I will pause. I will see what is there. Now, this is going to be tricky. I will try to finish till about 6:30. Half an hour for questions. I'm going to try and keep. If there are no questions, we'll end the class sooner, because I don't want to go to chapter 3. So that's the thing. I will also try and see if there are questions in the middle, so that we can take questions in the middle and cover the remaining part of chapter 2 in the remaining time left, so that we do the full 2 hours. This is always tricky, how many questions there are. Sometimes there are very few questions, sometimes there are a lot. I'm still trying to find out the optimal way to kind of make the best use of time. Having said that, let us start with chapter 2, or continue with chapter 2. We already covered till verse number 30. A very quick overview I'm going to do. So here it goes. All right. Hopefully all of you can see the slides on Zoom. Okay, Bhagavad Gita Chapter 2. So what we have covered so far, last week, we spent a lot of time on attachments and identity. I hope you recall that. Identity being I am fill in the blank, that you very strongly identify with. That if somebody provokes or tickles, could, massively trigger you. That's a good way of knowing who you identify as. From your identity come attachments, the strongest attachments. And those attachments are the ones that give suffering. And the focus is on suffering. In brackets, we have and pleasures, but typically the sufferings are longer lasting, the pleasures are short lasting. They give pleasures also. If one is very lucky, the pleasures could be long lasting. But sooner or later, one realizes that, this is ultimately not a place where I can find happiness. We discussed Arjuna's core attachments. We also discussed that there are some core attachments and core areas which give the core or the most significant areas of suffering. Rest, everything or many of the things are a derivative. When those are taken care, the remaining things kind of, become okay. Arjuna's core attachments were Bhishma and Drona, two people on the opposite side. Of course, on his own side, there were the Pandavas and others. But on the opposite side, these were the two people who were the most dear to him. And in fact, in the Mahabharata, it is written that he used to consider Bhishma more dear to him than Yudhishthir, who was his own dear brother. He would, bet his life. He basically, it was said that when Yudhishthir was betting his brothers, he got a little angry, but he subsided. He said, I belong to my brother. If he wants to bet me, fine. Though he was forced to bet. So that's a separate topic. Then we talked about Arjuna's surrender. Surrender means complete taking shelter of Krishna. And remember who Arjuna is. None of us, no one alive today, no one that has been alive in the last several hundred years can match the caliber of Arjuna. The kind of strength, not only physical, but mental strength that he had. And it is shown how he was in a completely miserable condition because of this impossible choice that he was given. And his state was that of utter confusion. He was just completely, he lost it, more or less, as we would say in today's language. And he says, Dharma sammudha cheta. I am, completely, I do not know what to do, which dharma to follow, which line of dharma. Everything is all confused. And then he took, in that state of mind, complete shelter of Krishna, that you guide me. Whatever you guide me, I will accept. I'm listening with an open ear. He did not say, I'm going to blindly follow you. He did not say that. Neither he meant that. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we will see that he will ask a lot of questions. He's not an easy student that you tell him and he will nod his head, yes, sir, yes, sir. He is a tough student. And intelligent students, smart students are like that. Okay. So Lord Krishna's first instruction, the absolute, Lord Krishna then takes off immediately. He doesn't spend even one verse, 1 second in wasting time. He starts talking about the identity. And he introduces, because he can sense that that Arjuna is all his reasons for not fighting were based on the bodily connections, or material level sin and punya and papa. If we kill people and this and that, we have discussed that in two weeks already. What he did not talk about was the spiritual identity. And Lord Krishna spends 20 verses from 11 to 30 talking about the spiritual identity. or the basis of the spiritual identity. The identity itself is not yet revealed. Please understand this carefully. Arjuna's actual identity is not yet revealed, or he has not seen it, but the basis of the identity. Are you following? When I say identity, seeing yourself as a spirit soul, not as the body. One aspect of that. So I will just pause and introduce a new thing which I did not cover last time. Please pay attention right now. One aspect of it is to see that this life is a small portion of my longer existence. This life, how much ever it may be, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, whatever years, is an extremely small sliver, a small fraction of my entire existence. That existence is the existence of the soul. Okay, this body, of course, has that limited existence, whatever that 70, 80, 100 years. Okay, so because the soul, and we will go into the next, and we'll come back to the previous one, we discussed some of these things. The soul is unborn, it is eternal, nitya. Some of the words I have picked the Sanskrit words, nitya, avyayam, as you can see here. Sanatana means the soul is eternal. The body is temporary. So the soul is the basis of the identity. The eternal soul is the basis of the identity. So who we are truly is the soul. Now, which soul? Every living entity is a soul. What is their identity? Ko aham asmi. Who am I? That is the fundamental question of Vedanta. So discovering your identity, your spiritual identity, is a longer process, but the basis of that is the soul, which is eternal. That topic has been introduced in these 20 verses. Are you following? As now I'm going to just go a little bit way into the Bhagavad Gita advanced. I have a slide on it. In the Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world, which is different from the material world, we have an identity. That is our spiritual identity. We could be, somebody, one of the cowherd boys who's playing with Krishna. We could be one of those Vanaras who helped Lord Rama to build the bridge. We could be a little bumblebee as well. We don't know yet. All the living entities in the spiritual world are equally knowledgeable, whether it's a bumblebee or a vanara or a, so to say, a person like a cowherd boy, gopa or somebody, gopi or whatever it may be. They are all, now this is incomprehensible. We are talking of the spiritual world. But that is I'm just giving you a sense, just a sense. Now it takes lifetimes for somebody to figure out who I really am. For some reason or the other, we have this body and we are living here on this planet Earth. Right now, the people in the room are living in Portland. For whatever reason, we have been traveling through time. So we take on these temporary identities. So we go back here. And with that temporary identity, we identify as, like last time we read this passage, Subhash Chandra Bose, I'm an Indian versus a British. So if you are Indian, today you are fighting for India. If you are British in next life, you might fight against the same cause. 180-degree turn you might take just because you changed your body. Doesn't make sense. It's like in the first half, you were wearing a green t-shirt, you're playing for one side. After the second half, after the break, you changed your t-shirt. Now suddenly you go to the other team. Doesn't work like that in sports. You play for the same team. But this is what is going on in the material world. Just because we change clothes, we change sides. So the basis of the spiritual identity being the soul we discussed. And one of them is temporary among the body and the soul. Those are the two things. One is temporary and the other is permanent, which is obvious, which is temporary, which is permanent. And the point was one should focus on the permanent and tolerate the temporary. Titikshasva was this word that we read. Tam titikshasva bharata. That tolerate whatever, the body is there. So there will be some suffering, and tolerate that so that you can focus on the permanent. If you just be busy with this, then you will lose all the focus of the focusing on your spiritual progress. So then we discussed quickly many of the attributes or many of the characteristics or properties of the soul. Now, what is the soul? Now, of course, we have no idea what the soul is scientifically. And today's science's answer is it doesn't exist. And that's fine. To a certain extent, now I don't want to go into that discussion in detail, but how do you describe something that is completely unfamiliar, out of this world, out of this universe? How do you describe that? One way of describing it is what it is not. In terms of what you know, everything we know is material. The soul is nothing like that. So one kind of crude way of describing it is what it is not. And basically the answer, it is nothing like what we know, anything. It's not like anything we know. So we discussed, there were some of these terms, but the main point is that the soul is eternal. Some of the important points I wanted to also mention is that the soul is achintya in the second chapter. Now today I will make you go through some of the verses. So please keep your Bhagavad Gita handy, ready to flip, ready to open and read the verses. So go to 2.25 and see the word achintya over there. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate. Do you see the first line? So it is avyakta, means it is invisible. It's not present. You cannot see it with your normal eyes. Avyakta. Then the second one is achintya, which cannot be conceived. Okay, it's inconceivable. And then in the 29th verse, it will be said, if you please go to 29, that some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, and while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. And we will see the reason why that is so. So these are those corns that may be left over in the bag that don't pop. Okay, maybe you need to put them in a different bag and they will pop. One day they will pop, but just takes just a little bit much longer than the current ones. So there will be some who will not, but keep trying. Okay, most likely none of you is in that category because you're already here. And this whole science is known as atma jnana. So please remember this word atma jnana. It's very straightforward. Atma jnana, the jnana or the knowledge of the atma. Okay. So far, so good? Yeah. All right. So we will continue now. Quick question.
Text 25, it says that it is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not live in the body. So it's basically saying that the soul is eternal, like you said, but how come the human population is rising every second?
So your question is, how come the human population is rising every second? That's one of the FAQs, frequently asked questions. What is unsaid? And again, we'll try to keep these kind of detailed questions for the end. But since you've asked, I'll just quickly answer. What is behind your question is that it seems like the souls are getting created because the human population is rising. So where are all these new souls coming into existence from? That's the question. Or that's the question behind your question, I assume. Or that's the query behind your question. And this is the frequently asked query. And answer is we are only seeing human population as those that have souls. What about every blade of grass? What about every little fish, every little, insect? Everybody and that too, we only see this planet. We don't see the living entities on other planets and other universes. This we will cover in chapter 8, how the living entities could be born in a completely different planet or a completely different universe. So the human population, whatever we are, 7 billion or something, is a minuscule fraction of all the jivas present in the material world. So you cannot say whether it's increasing or decreasing, okay? It's like adding a drop of water in the ocean, and now you are trying to think, oh, is the volume of the ocean, the amount of water in the ocean, did it go up? You're not taking into account all the evaporation that is occurring, and there are so many mega phenomena occurring. This is just a drop of water in the ocean, the human population on this little tiny planet. Okay. All right. So continuing forward, chapter 2. So now we go into 31st verse. Okay, we are going to rock and roll at a very fast speed. Please, as I said, tighten your seat belts, sit back, relax, and focus. So, after having explained, please pay very careful attention to get this chapter. This chapter's title is Contents of the Gita Summarized. So, you will see here in many of the slides, I have put pointers. More will be covered in this chapter or that chapter. Almost every chapter is covered. Okay, this is truly a summary. And it's important for you to get the whole sequence, for you to appreciate, understand, and get realizations from the Bhagavad Gita. So after having told Atma Jnana, Lord Krishna offers another material option. Arjuna offered one option, correct? That offer, I have this in the one of the later slides, of compassion, of being a loving son or a grandson of a family member, and so many other things. So Lord Krishna shows in the next 7 verses the other material option, which is his duty as a Kshatryia. You all understand Kshatryia? As a person who is a warrior. Not just a warrior, a leader, a brave person. So he shows him that, hey, there is this other duty, material. This is also at a material level. Honorable warrior. You need to fight in an honorable way. Deliverer of justice. Martyrdom. Honorable. If you die an honorable death. Don't get, like they say, shot on your back. If you want to get get shot on your chest. Face the enemy head on. Don't run away. So Lord Krishna is showing there is this other option also. Okay. So Lord Krishna is just showing this another option. So let's take 1 minute and read the translations 31 to 37. And on Zoom, please let me be the teacher. Don't answer questions, ask questions. So we don't want a parallel group discussion on the Zoom chat. So feel free to post questions. I'll try my best to take those questions, but don't start answering them. Let me be the single teacher here. You have enrolled as a student, not as a teacher. Yeah, sometimes I have to be a little strict or sound a little direct, but please forgive me. Okay, 20 more seconds. Okay, done. So what did you see? What you saw Lord Krishna offering was Lord Krishna offering another material alternative. Hey, you're thinking about all this, compassion and being sinless and not killing. What about being a brave leader, delivering justice? All those things. But the point is, Lord Krishna is just offering another, the key word here is another material option. It is at a bodily level. All these are material. I should have colored this as well in red color. All these are full of material dualities. This word duality, please remember this. It will occur again and again in the Bhagavad Gita. So in the material world, we have dualities. Brave and coward. Fear and fearless. You could see the word bhaya over there. Honor and dishonor. And also there is duality and there is comparison. Brave is better than coward. Did you read that somewhere? Fearless. Being fearless is better than being fearful. You don't want people to call you a fearless fellow who ran away. Honor versus dishonor. Better to die with honor than to save your body or save your life, so to say, with dishonor. And better to deliver justice than to be a tolerator of injustice. But all this is also at a material level, isn't it? So both these options, which options? Arjuna's options. One option was, hey, I don't want to fight. Please take me away from here. Versus Krishna's option, no, you stay here and fight. Why? Because it's your duty as a Kshatryia. You need to deliver justice to the wrongdoers and so on. Both are bodily alternatives. Is everybody clear about that? And here is the main point, that both are binding. Now, this is another key concept here. Both are binding. So the question becomes, bound to what? What does it mean both are binding? The Sanskrit word that you will see here is karma bandhana. Okay, so bandhan, I hope all of you can understand, means binding. Bandhan, some kind of bandhan. Karma bandhana means bound. It's not very clear, at least to the beginner. What do you mean karma bandhana? Bound to karma, bound by karma, bound, some permutation of combination of the word karma and the word bandhana. Your brain is bound right now, trying to figure it out. So let me explain what it means. So binding or bound to what? Okay. So there is this very nice chart, some, based on the Shastras, this chart has been created. Some devotee person artist person has created this chart. Now you cannot see every little detail there. And that is why a detailed version is available on, I have put it on the website. GitaPDX.com is the website. You all know that. We discussed it in the first class. It's the website we created. Doesn't take much to create a website with all the modern tools and all. So we did that. In that, there is a link on the left called useful links. Okay. And there within that, you will see some options or some bullets. One of them is a shared folder, a Google Drive shared folder. It will take you to a Google Drive. Within that, there is interesting documents folder. Within that, there is this creation poster.jpg. JPG is a JPEG picture file. You can download it. You can download it, you can print it, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So that is what I am showing here. Unfortunately, this is only the resolution I can show on the screen. What is the important point to show here is that this picture is showing, it's all based on the Shastras. There is the material world at the bottom and there is the spiritual world at the top. It's kind of shown like a sphere, both of those. So anyway, and a portion of that is shown of the sphere, the bottom one being the material world, the top one being the spiritual world. Okay. And within the spiritual world, there are the various Vaikuntha planets. There are infinite number of Vaikuntha planets. Okay. Not just one, many of them. There is Ayodhya Dham, there is Vrindavan Dham, there is so many other dhams. Now, the focus here is on the material world. This is where we are. And within this, there are many, many universes. One of them has been expanded into this sort of a ellipse. It's like in the shape of an egg, which is actually corroborated by science also. If you see the sort of the model of the universe, observable universe created by the, what is that, WMAP satellite, it shows it in the form of a ellipse or a, egg. Anyway, but this is the one of the universes has been zoomed in. There are so many others, as you can see, just like bubbles. And so basically the Shastras are already, sharing or telling the theory of a multiverse. Science is not there yet. But, there are professors waiting for a Nobel Prize who have proposed multiverse. There is no proof of it. And as you know, Nobel Prize is not given till there is a proof. Our great scientist Einstein was so frustrated after he proposed special relativity. He got the Nobel Prize in 1921. The theory, the papers were published in, anybody remembers the magical year, what is known as? 1905, 16 years later. So even though general relativity came in 1915, the prize was given for his papers of 1905. 16 years it took for them to verify if special relativity is correct or not through that experiment of the occultation of Mercury behind the sun. Anyway, we won't go into that. And every year he was hoping that he would get the Nobel Prize. And why he was hoping? Not for fame. Very stupid reason. Do you know? Anybody knows?
Acceptance.
To get rid of his first wife. Do you remember? Malieva or Eva Lok or something he had married. She was not giving him a divorce. She said, he said, I'm sure I'll get a Nobel Prize one day. All the prize money I get, it's yours. She said, okay, if you give me that money, I'll give you a divorce. You read the biography of Albert Einstein it's a very beautiful biography. I don't mean to demonize him. He's one of the greatest scientists, but I'm just telling you the kind of things that happen in people's life as well. Okay. Everybody is human. Every human is human, not Krishna. Krishna is not in that category. Okay. So anyway, and he was so frustrated that he was not being given the Nobel Prize that he didn't even attend his own Nobel Prize award ceremony. He did not go there. When he was called, he said, no, I have some other conference. I'm booked. He was not booked for any conference. He was going on a vacation that week. He was so frustrated and he knew he was already a celebrity. So he didn't care. And that was a big, anyway, so the point being that proof, science requires proof. Even our friend Mr. Peter Higgs, he had proposed the Higgs boson somewhere in the 60s. He got the Nobel Prize in 2012 or something, after the Large Hadron Collider was sufficiently energized so that it could predict or kind of detect the Higgs boson. After 50 years, he was given. Luckily, he was alive. There was this another thing that's with the Nobel Prize, right? You have to be alive to get it. That's why Mahatma Gandhi didn't get it in 1948. After the British left, then political situation was correct to give him. Before that, it was political. It would have been a political problem to go against the British Empire. So anyway, I met one of the, I went to, again, I'm going off track. I like to share little stories. I went to Oslo this summer, where the Nobel Peace Prize is given in Norway. The remaining ones are given in Stockholm. And I met one of the, on these, sometimes on these tour guides, one of the committee members comes as the tour guide. So when I went, one of the committee members came. So he said, yes, in our committee, there's this long sort of history. This is one of the major sort of black marks on the Nobel Peace Prize sort of overall thing, that Mahatma Gandhi is not on the list. And there's this famous saying that the question is not whether Mahatma Gandhi can live without the Nobel Prize. The bigger question is, can the Nobel Committee or the Nobel Prize live without Mahatma Gandhi on its list? Anyway, so, because it needs to be given to a living person, they had proposed his name, and his was the only name that year. Unfortunately, he got assassinated, and they didn't want to bend the rules. Anyway, so multiverse is there. There are people waiting in line for the Nobel Prize. Our Shastras talk about multiverse. Okay, with that much deviation for today, coming back, the binding, what are we bound to? We are bound to the material world. That is the binding. Now, within the material world, if you zoom in, once you download this JPEG, you will see these sort of 7 layers of planetary systems. In the middle is the Bhuloka, which is the earthly planets. It's not just one Earth planet, all the earthly planets. Okay. And then if you go 2 levels above Bhuloka, then Bhuvarloka, and then there is Svargaloka. This will be covered in chapter 9. I've said here more in chapter 9, where there is a lot of enjoyment. And those who do good deeds enjoy in Svarga, but then they come back to the Bhuloka. So they are bound. It's like a bound existence. So when we say, when somebody passes away, we say Swargavasi ho gaye, isn't it? It's a nice thing to go to Swarga, but if you really want to say something really nice to them, you should say Vaikunthavasi ho gaye. Then you're wishing something permanent for them. Swargavasi is like, okay, he's, may he go to Disneyland. Enjoy for some time, but then you come back. Okay. So instead of that, you can say that, he won $1 billion lottery. Then at least you're set for this whole life. So similarly, going to Vaikuntha, you are set eternally. Then no coming back. Okay. So that is the binding. So if you do good deeds, both of these are good. Now, the sinful actions are also bad and are also binding. Sorry, not also bad. Sinful actions are bad, but they are also binding. But these two are good options. You would agree that both are good options. One is compassion, the other is justice. Even these are binding. What to speak of the sinful actions? They are definitely binding, and you will go to the Narkalokas, the lower planets, where there is a lot of suffering. It's not Disneyland, it's going to, some desert or some place of suffering. So that is the binding too. Clear? Okay. Now, therefore, after having presented these two options, both of which are material, and therefore both are binding, Lord Krishna talks about 2.38. He offers a spiritual option. And this is a very, very important verse. This is a turning point in the second chapter. So please go to 2.38. So here Lord Krishna is saying, he is offering two spiritual options. Okay. So, or rather, there are two spiritual options being presented. So open 2.38, don't read it yet. Just look up and listen to me. There are two spiritual options, okay, for Arjuna. One is to not fight. Not because of compassion or those other reasons, but once you realize that we are all spirit souls, even if I kill the enemy, I'm only killing the body. I cannot kill the soul. The soul is indestructible. There is no weapon made. Even the Brahmastra cannot kill the soul. So with that knowledge, that with the Atma Jnana, don't fight. That is one option. Okay, with the Atma Jnana, due to the Atma Jnana, don't fight. That may be acceptable. Not because of your bodily concerns. Because of Atma Jnana, if you're saying, I don't want to fight, fine. Another option is fight, but without the material considerations. You still do your action, again with Atma Jnana. No material consideration. So the action, Lord Krishna is saying, is disassociated, okay, from the reason. The reason must be spiritual in both cases, not material. Then the action, whether it is to fight or not fight, is immaterial. Wait. So whether you do the action or you don't do the action, the more important part is the consciousness with which you are either doing or choosing to do or choosing to not do the action. That is important. Is it making sense? The purpose behind the action is more important. And then there are two options. So with that, Lord Krishna offers one of these options. And that is the question I have put. Which one is Lord Krishna's recommendation? To fight or not to fight? So he is making a recommendation in 2.38. So what does he say? Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. So Lord Krishna is saying, without or looking, same is the key word here, looking it as the same. What looking as what the same? Sukha and dukkha. Remember in the previous option, there was one is better than the other. There was a greater than sign here. First, that was a material level. Now there is an equal to sign. Same means same or equal. Equally look at sukha and dukkha. Both are bodily. Therefore, you should look at them equally. Labha, labha, the benefits, labha, you should consider equally in either case. Or jaya, jayo. So jaya and ajaya, victory or defeat, look at them equally because they are all at a material level. And tato yuddhaya yujyasva. With that consciousness, do the yuddha. Lord Krishna is not saying tato yuddhaya na yujyasya. Therefore, do not fight. He's not saying that. That would have been the other option. He's saying with that Atma Jnana, but fight. Okay. And like this, if you fight. Now, if you don't fight, obviously there is no papa. Correct? You won't incur any sin. But with that consciousness, if you fight, still there will be no papa, no binding. What is saying? Naivam papam avapsyasi. Naivam means no, papa avapsyasi means you will obtain, you will get or incur. You will not incur any sin, which means that sinful, no reaction will bind you. So your action will not produce any reaction. No reactions. Are you following? You are performing an action, but it is a, as we call a karma-free action. There is no karma. There is no karma means one of the meanings of karma is reaction. Okay? It will be karma-free. So that is what Lord Krishna is saying. So you are clear which one is Lord Krishna's recommendation? To do the action, but with Atma Jnana. Okay? Not with the idea of one is better than the other at a material level. With zero material considerations, do the action. Okay? And this is called as Buddhi Yoga. Now, more of this, what is this Buddhi Yoga, will be covered in chapter 10. Okay? But right now, Lord Krishna is giving this yoga the name of Buddhi Yoga. And very soon we will cover what is yoga. So I will come to that in a few slides. But right now, Lord Krishna is calling this Buddhi Yoga. Now, what he has explained so far in the 39th verse, Lord Krishna is saying that what I have explained, the whole Atma Jnana, the technical name of that is Sankhya Yoga. Don't worry about it. I'm just telling you that that's the name. That's not important. Okay? And that would say, if you just go by that, okay, everybody is a spirit soul, then what's the point of fighting? Okay? Lord Krishna is saying, don't worry about that. Don't abide by that option of don't fight since we are all spirit souls. Do the action. So Lord Krishna is encouraging action, but with the consciousness of Atma Jnana. So that is Buddhi Yoga. So just keep this Buddhi Yoga word in mind. It will appear at least 20 times in this verse, in this whole chapter, chapter 2. So this word Buddhi Yoga is important. It's a technical term. Just keep it in mind, and that's why I'm showing it on this slide. So fight. Lord Krishna is encouraging action, but without material considerations, with spiritual consciousness. But do the action. Don't refrain from the action. Now, what is the benefit of this spiritual option? This is a spiritual option. Well, both of those were spiritual options, whether to fight or to not fight, both with Atma Jnana. So what are the benefits of spiritual options? In general, there are two verses, 40 and 41, very important verses. So this 40th verse is extremely important. It shows the benefit of the spiritual option. The benefit of the spiritual option is that it carries over from one life to another. Unlike material property, are you able to carry anything material from one life to the other? No, not even your knowledge. Next life, if you are lucky to be born as a human, you still have to start from A, B, C, D. If you are a PhD in this life, you cannot just say, oh, I was a PhD in my last life. They will still tell you, no, you have to go through K through 12, go through all that thing. Spiritual progress that you have made in the previous life stays as it is. You start off from where you left off. And this is so clearly explained in chapter 6. And Lord Krishna describes very clearly what happens in different situations for those who have made spiritual progress. After some progress, after long progress, what do they get in the next life? One thing is guaranteed, a human life. That's very good to know. Hey, if you want at least next human life, do dedicate this life to spiritual progress. It doesn't mean you leave your jobs, leave your family. When I say dedicate it to spiritual progress, like we say, to somebody, to a child, dedicate your life in studies. It doesn't mean that he stops playing with his friends or he stops sleeping, stops eating, stops doing other things. But that would be one of the main focus. The other things become the secondary focus. So making spiritual life or spiritual progress in life is a very, very good option, Lord Krishna is saying. So this is a very beautiful verse. Now, if one is in a material life, there are 88,400,000 species as per the Shastras. Today's biology is somewhere around, we have some doctors in this group here, they can tell us, I think 5 million species have been discovered, or less than that, something like that. There are 8,400,000 species according to the Shastras. So you could be born as any one of those species. Some are even not present on this planet Earth. Some are present in some other planets. We don't know yet. So this verse says, Neha bhikrama nasho asti pratyavayo navidyate swa alpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swa alpa. Alpa means what? Little bit. Even if a little bit progress you make, it carries great benefit. The translation is, in this endeavor. What endeavor? The spiritual endeavor. There is no loss or diminution. A little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Trayate mahato bhayat. The biggest dangers which give the maximum fear to somebody, one can be protected by making spiritual progress. And it far outweighs, this is the important point, it far outweighs piety and sin. Now, piety and sin do carry into the next life. Whatever pious actions you do, it carries into next life. So you get a life of enjoyment. Or if you did sinful actions, that karma carries over into your next life. And then you suffer. Why are some people inherently suffering? Somebody is born blind. Now, by birth, if you are blind, how can you attribute it to something wrong that you did in this life? Then why is one person born blind and why is one person born in a royal palace? There are no answers to this at a level of our understanding. So karma does carry from one life to the other, but spiritual progress cancels the karma. It just cancels it. Whether pious or sinful, it just cancels it, which is a good thing, because ultimate goal is to be free of all karmic reaction, whether it is pious or sinful. Okay.
Why would it cancel the punya?
Why would it cancel the punya? That's just how the spiritual progress works.
The punya is good thing.
Punya, okay. So now it's also material. Okay. So that is like a good analogy of this is, of the punya karma is, you are working hard, which means you do punya karma, you get money, you go to Disneyland, you go to vacation. But when the punya is like a bank balance, when that is exhausted, when your credit card is, run out, what will they tell you in the vacation spot? Sir, your time's up. Your credit card's no longer working. You need to leave. So once our pious credits are exhausted, then we come back to this place. So, okay, you got temporary enjoyment. But when all karma is cancelled, when the net balance becomes zero of the good bank account and the bad bank account, when both of them, there might come a time when both are zero, that is moksha. So the goal is to make both bank accounts zero. Otherwise, the moment one of them is positive, any one or both, sometimes both are positive. We do some sinful action. So our debt, you can call it a debt account, and there is a credit account, whatever. I don't know the words. So, there's always a net, there is always a balance in both, and we are entangled. We are either going up or going down, going into the desert to suffer, going into Disneyland, going into the desert, going into the Disneyland. And this continues eternally. The moment both become zero, that is moksha. So it's a good thing. Spiritual progress is canceling both. Okay. These are very important concepts that please try to understand. So that is 2.40. I am not feeling like I'm finishing this chapter today. Anyway, we'll see. Another important verse. There's a but. So little spiritual progress is very essential, or very, very desirable, even a little. Okay, that is the potency, that's the power of spiritual progress. But there's a but. It requires singular focus. And there is this Sanskrit verse, beautiful one. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi ekeha kurunandana. Lord Krishna is saying, ekeha. Vyavasayatmika buddhi means that one who is very determined, whose buddhi is very determined. Now the word buddhi has started coming. Okay, this is about Buddhi Yoga. So one who is in Buddhi Yoga, his focus has to be ekeha. You cannot put your foot, as we say, in two boats. We have many other sayings like this: jack of all trades, master of none. Or, there's a very popular, very old 200-year-old book called Purity of Heart is to Will One Thing. It's a Christian book, but the title is very apt. The purity of heart is to will one thing, or is to desire one, basically single-minded focus. And you can see in life many successful people, even at a material level, when they put their mind onto one thing, there is tremendous success. And spiritual progress is no different. Okay, so singular focus. But hey, we are not Mahatma Gandhi or Steve Jobs or whoever, who could put like everything into like one thing, like 18-hour Elon Musk or whatever he says, I used to sleep in the factory or whatever. Single focus people. So don't worry about that right now. Work on increasing your focus. We are very far from this singular focus. And please know that spiritual progress is gradual. So don't expect overnight. You cannot even become an Elon Musk overnight. And that singular focus is on one stupid little factory. Spiritual focus is way more important. Just by putting your focus into some material machinery is hard. So don't worry about becoming a great spiritualist overnight. Give it time. But consistency is the key. Okay. So these are just my tips, or from the, so don't get discouraged. Oh my God, singular focus. What does it mean? Now I have to become the Elon Musk of spirituality. I can't even become an Elon Musk of a material thing. It's so hard. How can I do this? Don't get discouraged. Look at the last two bullets. It is gradual. It will take some time. Consistency is the key. And more about that will be covered in chapter 6. Next, very important section, 42 to 46. 5 verses, 42, 43, 44, 45, and 46. Very important verses. Do not let anything defocus you. Again, the same principles apply. Today, there may be things that will defocus you. Try to reduce those. Work on it. Don't expect overnight results, but keep your focus on. Okay. And one of the focus points of the Bhagavad Gita is not even let the Vedas defocus you. Wait a minute. What? Vedas? They are spiritual. So why is Lord Krishna saying, do not let the Vedas defocus you? So please, at this point, read 42 to 46. Take 1 minute. Just the translations of Bhagavad Gita 42 to 46, chapter 2. Okay, done. 10 more seconds. So as you can see here, Lord Krishna is saying, don't worry about the Vedas. So why is that? What is in the Vedas? Okay, so the Vedas are definitely spiritual texts. Now, one difference between the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita is that the Vedas are eternal. Okay, eternal means across all universes, across all time spans. Now, in the time span, in the 8th chapter, I will give a sort of a brief overview of the various time spans. Now, somebody told me I should point you. There's a much larger series we are doing. This is a small size S t-shirt size series. There's a double XL size series which is going on. All the chapterization has been done in that, thanks to some nice devotees. And you can scan through the chapter 8 and you will see sort of the discussion on the various time scales, the various yugas. So you might have heard of Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Right now we are in Kali Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, the Kali Yuga is an age or a large time frame of almost 400,000, 432,000 years to be precise. It's an age of hypocrisy and quarrel, where people are very, very self-centered. So the general nature, and that's true, we can see that around us. The Vedas, now these 4 yugas keep going round and round, or kind of cycle in cycles. After the Kali Yuga, again Satyuga will start. Vedas live across all these time spans. So the knowledge in the Vedas is universal, and it is meant for all kinds of ages. Bhagavad Gita is specifically spoken for Kali Yuga. It was spoken by Lord Krishna at the beginning of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga started right after the Mahabharata war ended. So Bhagavad Gita is specially mentioned, specifically spoken, is relevant for the Kali Yuga. In the previous yugas, people had much longer time lifespans as well. Now the lifespans are going down. So now somebody may ask, oh, medical science and all. So we'll take that in the Q&A if there's a question about that. So lifespan is increasing, or we are the average life expectancy, whatever was 60 years, 100 years ago. Now it's 65. Oh, so we made 5 years progress. We can talk about it if you want. But anyway, the Vedas talk about a very, very slow and an extremely slow progress towards spirituality. And they promote what is known as regulated sense gratification. So the amount of cutting down of sense gratification is very, very, very slow. Okay, you want to do bad things? Don't do bad things. Do it a little bit less. Like various kinds of fastings. On this day, don't eat meat, or that. Or even the Vedas say, okay, if you want to eat meat, you can kill an animal. There is a specific prayer you can say to the animal before you eat the animals. And that prayer says that in the next life, I will make myself available for you to eat me. Basically, you are saying today, so there are certain prayers in the Vedas. Today, if you want to enjoy, I am going to enjoy at your expense, with the promise, and you're not promising like, I will come and get myself killed. Yamaraj or the, Lord, that will arrange. So basically the whole point is, if you say those prayers and if you understand those prayers, it will be a warning sign. Wait a minute, what am I signing up for? I don't want this. If that's what's going to happen before I kill an animal, I don't want to kill. So that creates that sort of a motivation. So this is how the Vedas encourage regulated sense gratification in a very, very slow manner. It is meant for people of all ages, all kinds, all types of Kali Yugas as well, where there are various people who cannot focus. Our Vedic system is so accommodating, it can accommodate everyone, even the slowest student. like the American education system. No child left behind. So Vedas also are like that. No soul left behind. However degraded you are, there is something the Veda that has, it's a nice thing, it's a good thing. Something, the Vedas never discard anyone. There is something for everyone. Even for the biggest sinner, if he wants to take to the Vedas, there is something for him to make spiritual progress. So that is the beauty of the Vedas. But the downside is they take a very, very, very long time, and it seems that they promote sense gratification unless you read the words very carefully. Lord Krishna is, especially in Kali Yuga, advocating an accelerated path through the Bhagavad Gita, and therefore he's saying, don't worry about the Vedas. Are you following? So the Vedas are not wrong, but Bhagavad Gita is a superior option. It's like the express train in India, you might have seen, or in even New York. There's those express trains and there's the local trains, right? So you have the express train option through Bhagavad Gita.
So Vedas are from before the Kali Yuga.
Yeah, they are eternal. Yes, they are from before Kali Yuga. In 2.46th verse, Lord Krishna is saying there's a very important thing, and more of this will be discovered, or we will discuss in chapter 15. That Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas. So it is not misaligned with Vedas, but it is giving out the essence, the things that you are likely to miss in the Vedas because of their volume and all the kind of things that it tries to do. You may miss the main points. Bhagavad Gita is putting that into a comprehensive, short sort of a synopsis and giving it to us, Lord Krishna is saying. And what he's saying is that the purpose is more important than the process. Vedas go very deep into the rituals, the processes, and all that stuff. Bhagavad Gita is giving us the essence. Okay? So, one of the important things that I wanted to point out in 2.44, now none of you are following Vedas, right? Have anybody read the Vedas, is following a big section of it? Nobody is doing that. In Kali Yuga, it's, even more improbable that people are doing anything to do with Vedas. But the 44th verse, which is also kind of from the Vedas, is very relevant to us. And I want everybody to pay very careful attention to 44. This is the biggest impediment to our spiritual progress. The biggest impediment. Beware. That's the biggest beware. What is that? Our attachment to sense gratification. Our attachment to all this comfort and riches and property and all this, what is in Sanskrit, Lord Krishna is calling it as Bhoga Aishwarya. Aishwarya, you understand? All the opulence, all the material comfort, the material stuff. Okay? Bhoga. Bhoga means bhogana. Bhogana means to enjoy. Bhoga Aishwarya Prasaktanam. Those who are too much attached to Chaya Taya Aprita Chetasam. Their mind is always into this. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. That focus that we talked about. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana in the previous verse. That Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadhau Na Vidhiyate. That Buddhi, that single pointed attention does not occur. Towards this Samadhi. Samadhi means spiritual progress, or the destination, the final destination of spiritual journey does not take place. Even that starting does not take place. So the point that you will see unfolding in this second chapter is to give up that incessant desire for stuff, for comfort, for running behind things. Just running behind things. I mean, I'm now a director, now I have to be a VP. My life is miserable till I become a VP. I mean, like, you're already at the top of the world if you're a director. I'm just picking some words which you will understand, okay? No, VP, then senior VP, or whatever, I want to get into Stanford. Okay, now I have to like 4.0 GPA. Now the next 4 years are like all about 4.0. Then it's about, it never ends. It never ends. Never ends. That incessant. So this is a very, very important verse, 4.44. Now we come to 2.47. So that was 2.46. So very, very seminal verse. Many of you are familiar with it. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur mate sangostva akarmani. So we will not, since this is a fast class, we will not go into dissecting each word. Each word is a gem, is $1 million gem in this verse. But there are 3 main points. This verse, we can say, is like 2.38. It was giving sort of an overall synopsis of Buddhi Yoga. This is breaking down Buddhi Yoga a little bit more into some components. So this verse, there's another verse, very beautiful verse in the 3rd chapter, which we will cover next week, hopefully, if we finish chapter 2 today, which also very crisply defines our Buddhi Yoga. Our Buddhi Yoga means our Bhagavad Gita is the Buddhi Yoga. But this verse is defining Buddhi Yoga very nicely. So one point is, Karmanyeva adhikaraste. You have a adhikar, or you have the right, or you must. Basically, I'm not going to go into the Sanskrit deep details. It will take 1 hour. You must do your duty. So this is not about Sankhya Yoga, where you are just in bliss. Oh, I am just the Atma. I don't need to do anything. That is very good. I mean, that's a spiritual path. Many yogis and do that. That's the state of enlightenment or whatever. So nothing, but Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in Kali Yuga is not advocating that. In Kali Yuga later on, Lord Krishna will say, it's just not possible. Our nature, just like as a Kshatryia, your nature is to fight. Even though you run away today from the battle, there you will see your brothers fighting, losing, and your blood will boil like a Kshatryia. Oh my God, my brothers are losing. Why did I quit? Let me just go back in. You will just go back right in. Okay. Imagine yourself doing things like some of you, like a very good example, nice example is being a perfectionist. How many of you are perfectionists? Now, it sucks the energy out of you, isn't it? Then you decide, okay, let me just, play the 80-20 rule. 80% perfection is good enough. What happens after 2 weeks? You're back to being a perfectionist. That's the swabhava, that's the nature. So similarly, in Kali Yuga, we cannot be like that in the state of no action. We cannot be in the state of doing no action. So do the action. Okay. But with the atma jnana consciousness. So that is the next 2 points. So do your duty, and that also not with half commitment. Oh, I'm just doing my duty. Kacha pakka, half, half baked. Not that, with full commitment. Ma te sangostva akarmani means never think of not doing your duty, which means like trying to do half duty. The point is you must do your duty with full commitment, but don't be attached to the results. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma means no. You should not have any attachment to the results. Just do the duty for the sake of doing the duty, and that's it. Not even for the pride of doing the duty. The pride then becomes a material result that you are enjoying. Oh, I do my duty. Yes, I'm a dutiful guy. That also becomes a result. Not even that. Just do your duty with full commitment, no attachment to results, and know that you are not the only producer of results. This is a very important point. Ma karma phala hetur bhur. You don't even have a right on the results. If I am producing the result, then I should have a right. Fine, I choose to give it up, but I have the right. You don't even have the right on the results. Now, please tell me something. Does a farmer have the right on the crop? Take a very simple example. How many of you say yes? We haven't. Does the farmer have the right on the crop that is produced? Yes.
Yes.
Full right?
Not full right.
Why not?
20% or 10% he has to give to his.
No, but why does he not have the full right? I'm just talking in pure logic terms. Yes.
Most of the work is done by nature,
What kind of work?
like the like water, sunlight.
Very nice. This young man is very smart. So the farmer can do his best job, but if there is no rain, what will happen? There'll be no crop. Isn't it? What if the pests attack? Then what will happen? Or what if he does his full duty, but at the wrong time, he sowed the wrong seeds. He sowed the mango seed in the winter or something, then the mango will not come. So you have to do so many things. The time has to be in your favor. The nature has to be in your favor. The other living entities have to be in your, the pests have to say, okay, I won't destroy your crop. So many, the goats and other animals shouldn't come and eat it. You have to put a fence and all that to protect. And the government then should not come and just take it along. So many things have to go right. It's not within your control. And if you do get a good crop with your supposed ownership, you should know that you are not the only one. Lot of things beyond your control went your way. You should have gratitude and thankfulness in your heart. Okay. So that is the point. And therefore, what is the point of claiming result or ownership of the result? A lot more of this will be covered in chapters 3, 4, and 5. So the question, so we have been talking about Buddhi Yoga. What is the meaning of yoga? Very quickly we will cover. The literal meaning of yoga is connection. Okay. To connect something to something. The Bhagavad Gita or the spiritual meaning of yoga is connecting with the spirit or connecting with our spiritual identity. Our intelligence, Buddhi Yoga means our intelligence is what causes us to do certain things. So connecting our Buddhi, not with the body, but with the soul. We do all the actions that we are doing today is because we are connecting our Buddhi to the body, material identity. I am this, I am that. Isn't it? We discussed that last week and this week. So when we connect our Buddhi, our intelligence, that with our spiritual identity, that is Buddhi Yoga. So in the Bhagavad Gita context, Buddhi Yoga or yoga means connecting with the spirit. And there are multiple forms of yoga that we will see. Primarily 4 forms of yoga: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Every chapter, all the 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita actually have a name or a yoga or a type of yoga. But primarily these are the 4. Okay. So, but don't worry about that. Buddhi Yoga, which is another form or another, the bigger name that will emerge is Karma Yoga out of this. So then after the second chapter, the term Buddhi Yoga will take a back seat. It will be replaced by this term called Karma Yoga. So be ready for that next week. And especially another term will come, Nishkama Karma Yoga. There is something called Sakama Karma Yoga and Nishkama Karma Yoga. Please pay careful attention, review the videos, do all these things so that you are on top of all these terms. These are important as you progress. Any topic needs to have terminology. Otherwise, like without talking about the term square root, you can't discuss math. Then I have to, every time if I have to say the number with which it multiplied by itself gives this result, if I have to say all those words to just describe square root, then the language will become very, very confusing. So therefore, there have to be terms to describe things. Terminology is important in understanding concepts. Okay. Yes.
How would you translate atma jnana?
the science or the knowledge of the soul. And among these 4 categories that I described, it falls under Jnana Yoga. So Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. That Atma Jnana is Jnana Yoga. So one who is a Jnani, just to answer that question, will not do any action. He is just situated in the Jnana, that everybody is a spirit soul. I am also a spirit soul. No need to do any action. And you will see, now even breathing is an action, isn't it? Would you agree? Breathing is an action. Even doctors would agree. They stop action to the extent of even stopping breathing. No action, literally no action. The body comes to a standstill, like 0 Kelvin kind of. All the molecules in their body also stop, kind of thing. Very, very mind-boggling. But we'll come to that in chapter 4. Don't worry about it. We are still on chapter 2. So this is yoga. Now we will make progress into little more details of Buddhi Yoga. Okay. So some important points of Buddhi Yoga. So again, a very, very important verse of Buddhi Yoga is 2.47, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That don't be attached to the results, but still do your duty. Okay? Even though you have no attachment. Today we would think, why do the work if I'm not going to get the result? Okay? If your job tells you won't get any salary, would you work? So if there is no, we are all doing everything for the result. Anything that we are doing is for the result. So to do things, just to do it. Just do it. No because. No because. Do the action. So some more details of that are being presented in these 6 verses, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. This will be sort of the ending of the theory of Buddhi Yoga, the theory of Buddhi Yoga. So please read these 6 verses, 1 minute. 48 to 53. Twenty seconds. Okay, done. So some of the key points. 49th verse, Durena hi avaram karma. Stay away from sinful actions. So when we are saying about actions, do your duty, doesn't mean doing sinful actions. So one shouldn't say, oh, and I'll go around killing people with the consciousness that, that's not the right thing. Staying away from sinful actions. So that is first thing that Lord Krishna is clarifying. Then acting in spiritual consciousness, in the 50th verse, Lord Krishna is saying that whatever actions we are doing we are still doing some action. Action is being, Lord Krishna himself is advocating doing action. Maybe unknowingly some sin is occurring. Obviously you are doing it and you're doing non-sinful action, which means, let's say, good actions with the spiritual consciousness, but since the action itself is good, it will produce good fruit. You are sowing good seeds, correct? So what will be the fruit of that tree? Sweet. Lord Krishna is saying, don't take the fruit, don't eat the fruit. You sowed the seed, you are entitled, let's say. You sow, as they say, as you sow, so shall you reap. So if you do good things will happen to you. That's the normal law of karma. Here, what is being said is that do good actions, but don't accept the sweet fruit. Let it be there. Okay, so sweet fruits will come. Now, by doing it in this consciousness, what will happen is that you will be free from those reactions. You will not be forced to accept the fruit. Now, this is a very important point. Please pay attention. Okay. Just like now, sinful action, we all understand in the modern terminology. If you commit a sinful action, okay, they will send you to jail. Do they ask the criminal, do you want to go to jail, sir? If you say no, then we won't send you. Doesn't happen like that. So that is easy to understand. But today, if you do something good and you are entitled for a reward, okay, like let's say you fought very bravely in the battle, they give you a medal of honor or some Padma Bhushan or Vibhushan, whatever. You can always decline that, isn't it? You can say, I don't want the medal. They will accept. So in this world, we have a choice. We don't have a choice to accept the punishment. We must suffer. But typically we see we have a choice to reject the reward. That is allowed. In this law of karma, you must, just like you must accept the punishment, you must accept the reward. There is no way out. So if you have performed pious actions without this spiritual consciousness, like Arjuna was planning to do, I will not kill, I will do that, he would have got pious reactions, punya karma. He must enjoy it. He cannot say, I write it off. So my balance of that account has become zero just because I gave it up. It doesn't work like that. Are you following? You're all following. So you must enjoy the fruits of the pious actions. But if you did those pious actions with the spiritual consciousness, which is Buddhi Yoga, then you are not forced to enjoy the results, the rewards. Are you following? That is the whole point, that it is non-binding. You're not bound to eat that sweet fruit. So that is what is said in the 50th verse. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite. Sukrita or dushkrita. Now, in doing your good actions, maybe there are some sinful actions that occur. Let's say you are going and trying to help somebody on the street. There was an ant on the street and you stepped on the ant and the ant died without your knowledge. That is also papa karma. That is sinful action. So in the normal case, you would get a lot of punya because you helped somebody on the street, but you will get some sinful reaction because you weren't careful enough for the ants on the street. Or even by breathing, some bacteria die. That's why some of these Jain munis, you might have seen, they wear like a cloth covering on their face, so that it's not because of COVID or it's not for that. It's to protect those living entities. It's a symbolic thing that they don't want to kill. Even those things, those living bacteria, those things in the air who will die simply by the hot breath. That is the point. So trying to avoid all kind of sin. But there will be some sinful actions. They are bound to be. Lord Krishna is saying, if you do it with spiritual consciousness, you do not have to go through you do not have to suffer the punishment, and all the good actions that you are doing, you are not bound to enjoy the rewards either. So that is what is meant by buddhi yukto jahatiha. Means you do not have to, for all the sukriti and dushkriti, good actions or bad actions. Okay, that means the actions done in spiritual consciousness are completely non-binding. That is another important point.
I have a question. Can you give an example of an action which is done with spiritual consciousness, so it's non-binding? Since we talked about the one which are binding, the example of non-binding.
Yeah, so okay, so that's a very good question. Was the question audible on the Zoom? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, great. So an example of a action which is done in spiritual consciousness. That very question you are asking because it's not clear. And therefore, I am answering your question. Trust me, I am answering your question, but it may appear as if I'm not answering. But that's the answer. How to do actions with a spiritual consciousness with what we have discussed so far is very hard. And that is why all these things, the discussion is leading up to Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga, when we start covering from the 7th chapter onwards, it will become crystal clear how to do actions which are completely spiritual. It's very, very easy to do spiritual actions which attract no reaction. But without that, the way you have to do, go into a cave in the Himalayas, sit down, do not even breathe, do not do any action. Otherwise, even with your breathing, at least some entities will die. So the point is, it is very, very hard to do actions which are not going to attract with completely spiritual consciousness. Okay, until we get to the point of Bhakti Yoga. So just you have to stay on board for next 6-7 weeks.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And this in the 51st verse, it says that it leads to moksha. There is this thing, janma bandha vinirmukta. So you get mukti from this cycle of janma bandhana, the cycle of repeated birth. And padam gachanti anamayam. Anamayam means eternal. One goes towards the eternal destination. Like I showed in the chart, it's not Swarga. It is to the spiritual world. That is the destination. Okay. By doing this kind of action. Now, so what I'm going to do, this is the next section from 54. I'm going to stop here and see if there are questions. If there are questions, I will love to answer questions. Otherwise, I will continue. And we'll spend the next 20 minutes on questions if there are any. And then we will finish chapter 2 next time, and then start chapter 3 also next time.
So I did hear you say that you will have to accept the rewards of your karma.
If not done in full spiritual consciousness.
Can you give me an example of that?
So an example of enjoying the rewards. So a very simple example is you do good things. A very standard textbook example of a good thing is helping an old blind lady cross the road, right? You see an old blind lady on the street, you hold her hand and you make her cross the road. That's a good thing, isn't it? You get some pious reaction, you get pious karma, punya karma. Then you will get some fruit out of it. Maybe, I don't know, you'll get a promotion in your job or something. I mean, maybe you'll go to Swarga if you do this enough. Let's say you build a big hospital for somebody, all these Tatas, Birlas or Bill Gates and all, they are spending all this philanthropy money. Maybe their next life will be in Swarga. I don't know what all bad things they're doing behind the scenes, which will, make them go elsewhere. But let's say if you're doing really good things, you will go to Swarga. You cannot say, no, you know what? Just write it off. Make my positive, that pious, the punya karma balance 0, my dear Krishna or my dear Yamaraj. I give up it sounds logical, at least in our material world, to say, I don't want to enjoy. because you know that the goal has to be 0. So you just choose to write it off to 0. That's not possible, is what I'm saying. But if Mr. Bill Gates, let's say whatever philanthropy he's doing with full spiritual consciousness, completely no attachment to the result, then the bank account is not even increasing. So it is staying wherever it is. And plus then whatever it was, if it was non-zero, he'll have to do the enjoyment of that and try to bring it down to 0. The goal is to bring it to 0. Either by enjoying, using your credit card points, or by not accruing at all. But the only way you can not accrue is when it is done with 100% spiritual consciousness. Otherwise, you have no choice but to let it accrue. I hope you get the point.
Correct.
He had his hand raised. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, with the good karma and bad karma cancel out?
No, good karma and bad karma do not cancel out. You have to enjoy separately and suffer separately. Many people have that misconception, and that is known as the Robin Hood mentality. You know Robin Hood in the movies or storybooks? He thinks that by stealing and killing people and using that money to help the poor will compensate for the sin. No, it doesn't. You have those are two separate things. You have to separately suffer and separately enjoy. So your Robin Hood, you went and killed somebody. You think he was a bad guy, or he earned the money by bad means. You killed him, you took his money and gave it to some poor needy person. So you'll have to suffer because of this action. And because you gave that money to a poor person, you could have kept it for yourself. You will have to go enjoy, get some reward for it, for this second action. Okay, they don't cancel each other. Yes.
So if you understood that meaning of karmanyavadhikara, let's say you're helping the lady cross the road without any expectations. Is it still not considered spiritual consciousness? Is it more than that, the spiritual consciousness?
There is nothing more than spiritual consciousness, but if you can do that with 100% spiritual consciousness, then yes, then it would be fulfilling the purpose of the verse, the karmanyavadhikaraste verse. And please be clear, it has to be no, absolutely no. That's very hard. It may sound, you may feel, who's looking? Me, you should do good things even when nobody is looking. Not only somebody else, even you yourself. Oh, I did a good thing, feeling that I am a good person, or even hoping that some God is watching so that he will reward me next life. None of those have to be there. Then only it counts as complete spiritual action, or not spiritual action, sorry, action with spiritual consciousness. Okay.
If you feel good about helping others,
then it's material. If you feel good about material, you're back to square one. We'll come to you again. Yes.
So is it, what we're talking right now, does it mean that dissolving that me, that I am helping the blind lady, bring us to that conscious state?
Yes, it would.
If you say it's him, not me, and that means.
Yeah, dissolving your material identity would help to do actions in a spiritual consciousness. We have a couple of hands up in the Zoom. Sridhar Rao.
Sure, thank you. My question is, if Krishna is telling Arjuna to do his dharma and fight without expecting the results, going back to your last week's conversation between the Maharaj and Subhash Chandra Bose, Subhash Chandra Bose was trying to do his duty in this birth without for fighting for the countries and freeing up for getting for the freedom aspect of it. My question is, why did he walk, or why did Maharaji actually challenged him and kind of?
So Subhash Chandra Bose was not in the spiritual consciousness. He was not asking for the men to fight with a spiritual consciousness. His aim was very much material. He said, I have taken a vow Give me your blood and I will give you freedom from the British. Freedom from the British is a material result. And Maharaj said, I am also doing freedom fighting, but my freedom fight is spiritual. I am trying to give freedom from this material entanglement. That is spiritual consciousness. Subhash Chandra Bose, right from the onset, was very clear. It is material consciousness. So there's no doubt about that. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Another question online, Nalini, Nilani.
Yeah, that is the dad. So
Okay.
I had this is Kapilan. I had a question about spiritual goodness and carrying it forward. So do you realize it immediately, or does it take time to self-realize? There's going back to certain people have different spiritual consciousness level. Is that carried forward and you realize it immediately, or does it take time?
Take time to realize where you are, or take time to make progress? Wasn't clear in your question.
Take time to realize where you are. So say you have a balance of 50 spiritual goodness. Do you realize it?
Whatever.
Yeah.
So spiritual goodness is not a bank account, or spiritual progress is not a bank account. So that bank account analogy was limited to material punya and papa, or piety or pious and sinful actions. Point number one. Point number two is that, what did you ask? That how do I know where I am in my spiritual progress? Yes, there are ways. There are ways to find out or to assess where. Rest of you kindly mute yourself. Where you are in your spiritual progress. And that is a more deeper, elaborate question. There is a whole, spiritual, progress. I can say in brief, for those who are very serious about spiritual progress, will seek out a guru and through or a spiritual teacher. How do you know? I mean, things are very similar to this material progress we make. How do you know how much knowledge you have materially? When you go to school, they give you a test, you get some marks, okay, this is where I am. I got these courses got done. This is my GPA, whatever. Essentially speaking, the guru-shishya relationship is like that. The guru assesses, these are the things where you need to progress. And, he will take you down the path of spiritual progress by assessing you. So, but that is a much broader or a much longer discussion. Okay.
Thank you.
We have a question in the room, then we'll come back online.
So, like this world has all these laws which govern it, right? The laws of physics, etc. So, is the law of karma like a law which governs this whole existence in the material world?
So I hope you heard the question on the Zoom. Is the law of karma governing the whole existence in the material world? Absolutely, yes. Yes.
So he has introduced it in the Gita now without actually introducing it.
It will be introduced more formally in the 3rd chapter, which is called Karma Yoga. So the law of karma is the law by which the material world is one of the major laws by which the material world is running. Absolutely, yes. And it is subtle. It is still material, but it is subtle, which means laws of physics, as we know physics, cannot see that. Just a few days back, we were having a discussion about randomness in one of the Ishopanishad classes. You can go listen to that. And we discussed how, let's say, a lottery winner is decided. And, these days, Powerballs or whatever are billions of dollars. They better have a very, very impeccable way of choosing the winning ticket. Billions of dollars are at stake. And it's all based on laws of physics, how randomness, you might have seen some balls jumping around in a chamber or things like that. And then a winning number based on which balls sit. Whatever, it's like a Russian roulette or something like that. Not Russian roulette, sorry, a roulette. So there is randomness there. But the person who wins the lottery is going to be a billionaire. He must have done some past karma, good karma, which is why he's winning the lottery. The laws of physics can't comprehend what went on in that chamber to get that winning number. But very much the law of karma was also, in action over there to come up with the winning number. Otherwise, just a guy bought a ticket for $2 and now suddenly he's a billionaire. How do you explain that? Okay, we'll go online, Suresh, and then we'll come here.
Yeah, namaste, Hari Om. I had a question about verse number 40. You said the Trayate Mahato Bhayat.
Trayate Mahato Bhayat, yes.
Yeah. So what is that Bhayat? What is that fear that is being described here?
Fear means material fear. A situation yes, okay. Absolutely. A situation that gives material fear. You know more than everybody knows what they fear. One thing we all fear is death, and that too a painful death. Nobody wants that. And so many other things we fear, Parents fear the loss of their child. We all fear loss of loved ones. We'll feel loss of friends. Friends will stop being friends. They will become indifferent. They will take advantage. So many things we fear. We fear the loss of property. We fear the loss of everything we have accumulated, worked so hard to earn.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the room here, and then go ahead.
So, Subhash Chandra Bose, he was also fighting for his country because the Britishers were killing our people and also raping women and doing a lot of
Correct.
sin.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same thing with Arjuna. He was also fighting with wrong people. So why is that difference between Subhash Chandra Bose was not fair and Arjuna is fair?
Nobody is saying Subhash Chandra Bose was not fair. That's not the outcome. And in fact, what Krishna is telling Arjuna is exactly what Bhaktisiddhant Maharaj told Subhash Chandra Bose. Arjuna, on the other hand, if you see the slides, the other option, you must fight to deliver justice. On the first class, there was a discussion about, or somebody asked a question, what if somebody is attached to, isn't that an attachment to justice? It's a good kind of attachment. So yes, justice must be delivered. All those are good things. And the Britishers, it's not trying to say, oh, just because they attacked India, it's a material level, so it's acceptable. It's not acceptable by material standards at all. Okay, and they will pay the price. They will, suffer punishment, and all that will hold. But the point is, it is still material, and there is a higher level of consciousness. Bhagavad Gita is about, if you are interested in this cycle, that what hamster wheel, okay, sometimes you are up, sometimes you are down, then Bhagavad Gita is not the book to be consulted, or not. You shouldn't be one should not be spending time on Bhagavad Gita if all you are interested is in how to do punya karma, how to be a good person, how to not do bad things, or how to fight for justice for the victims, for those who have been oppressed. If those are one's intention, there are so many other things to learn from. Bhagavad Gita is not the book for focusing on that. Bhagavad Gita is taking us above all of these considerations. Okay, so it's not like Subhash Chandra Bose was fighting for a wrong cause or anything like that. The point is that is being made is still they are all at a material level, and one should aim to go higher than that, to aim for that permanent destination where there is permanent happiness. The Britishers, let's say, who were raping the women, they will go to hell. Okay, in the 16th chapter, we will study about hell. It is also temporary. They will suffer for some time. Then they will again come back to the earth planet. Then they become good persons maybe. So that suffering was also temporary. They will suffer. Whoever raped anybody will suffer. Okay. But that suffering is also temporary. Just like the reward is temporary. So we are constantly going up and down, up and down, up and down. Bhagavad Gita is not about how to optimize this cycle of up and down. It is about going beyond this whole hamster wheel. Are you following the point? I think she has a comment.
I think so. I'm getting one subtle difference. What she's asking is that Arjun was asked to fight, but Saraswati Maharaj asked Subhashan, kind of told him to not fight.
So if that is the question,
Krishna was telling him, it was God who was telling Arjun.
No, there's a slide. Let me share a slide. Two options. Okay. Two options Arjuna was given. One was his own option, do not fight. But due to material considerations, and Krishna is saying you fight, but due to spiritual considerations. If Arjuna chose to not fight, but with pure spiritual consciousness, that would also have been a spiritual option. Okay. Bhaktisiddhant Maharaj, what he was saying is, I don't want to spend the energy to fight a material battle for material reasons. I am trying to fight a spiritual battle. I am trying to fight the material energy itself. Okay. So let's see who else had a question. Yes, we'll come to you and then.
Okay. Previously you said that if somebody ends their life and they had something bad, like they would suffer for it, right? Like go to hell or something.
If they did bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the hell also has levels and the punishment is commensurate with the crime. But go ahead.
Yeah. And in 8.27, it says that
8.27.
yeah,
Okay.
It's related.
Okay.
It says that when somebody passes into darkness, he returns. Does that mean that if he died because of darkness or he died as?
I'm not going to discuss that. We'll discuss that when we come to the 8th chapter. You're way too ahead. That passing in darkness and light is a completely different concept. Okay. So wrong time to ask the question. We'll just without understanding, like, differentiation, you're asking me how to do integration. How can I discuss that? First, you need to do algebra, then we can talk calculus. It's that kind of relationship. So just hold on, be patient, few more weeks. Okay. Yes.
So I have a question about principle of karma and tying that into karmanya-vadika, because today we understood that in a context of spiritual consciousness, but in the past I've heard about that you don't have rights on the fruits because the karma you're doing might not be paryapta right away. So you might not get the fruits for the karma you're doing right now, and you might be getting the fruits of karma you have done in the past. So for example, if I'm working hard for my exams, I did everything, but I still don't get the good score because that hard work was not ready to pay off yet, and I might have not helped somebody in the past with some questions for exam, and that's why I'm getting punished. Is it fair to say that it's a wrong concept?
No, karmanyavadhikara verse is not talking about that at all.
Okay.
Okay. What you are saying as a concept is correct.
Okay.
That you do hard work, and we just gave the example of farmer. He may do all the hard work. He may plow the land, sow the seeds. It's a lot of hard work for a farmer, right? That's why farmers don't get diabetes and all these diseases. Only software engineers get it because we sit on the chair and do the work. So farmers do a lot of hard work, correct? But not every time the crop is as good. And yes, the reason is, yes, the drought came, the pests came. All that was not by chance. There is no chance. According to the Shastra, the world doesn't work by chance. Otherwise, we should be praying to chance. Shri Chansaya Namaha, instead of saying Shri Krishnaya Namaha. So chance has no place in the material in this world, according to the Shastra. So if the pests attack or if the drought happens, it is all because of our past karma. So yes, there was something in the past which is preventing us from reaping the full benefits of the hard work we have put in. So that concept is correct, but that has nothing to do with, that's the wrong interpretation of 2.47.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, 2.47 is a purely spiritual verse.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Who had their hand raised?
I have one question.
Yes.
But it is related to Mahabharata. So,
okay.
Krishna, Lord Krishna, he eliminated many demons from his childhood to middle age. So, why he want to eliminate the people through Arjuna?
Why? So why he could not eliminate those people himself?
Yes.
The Lord does. Yes. So that two things here. Firstly, the Lord's ways are inconceivable. What the Lord wants to do, how he wants to enact, is entirely up to him. Okay. You're having Bhagavad Gita in your hands. Open 11.33. Okay. So Arjuna has not yet decided to fight, correct? He is still in the process of decision. What is the last line of 11.33, 11th chapter, 33rd verse? Nimitta matra bhava savya sachi. Just be an instrument. So what Lord Krishna is saying is that I am the one who is deciding that these people should be killed. You want to be an instrument or not? If you are not willing to be the instrument, I'll pick a different instrument. Okay. So the Lord may choose to use an instrument. The Lord may choose not to use an instrument. The instrument could be an actual weapon like Sudarshan Chakra. Is an instrument. Using the Sudarshan Chakra, the Lord kills demons. He killed Shishupal with the Sudarshan Chakra. I hope you are familiar with that. So the Sudarshan Chakra is an instrument. And the Sudarshan Chakra is a person. There's a person behind Sudarshan Chakra. There is a conversation in the Srimad Bhagavatam between Krishna and the Sudarshan Chakra. So Sudarshan Chakra could say, you know what? Please don't use me for killing this guy. Krishna will say, okay, too bad you're declining my orders. I'll choose some other one. So we are all instruments. Okay. But it is up to the Lord to choose which instruments he wants to use at what time. He can use his devotees or he can do it himself. There is no difference in that. The other thing is, so two things were there. Sometimes the Lord wants to glorify his devotees. You must have heard a famous verse, Paritranaya Sadhunam. There are three purposes of God appearing on this planet. Okay. Paritranaya Sadhunam is one. The second one is Vinashaya cha Dushkritam, which means to destroy the bad guys. The third one is Dharma Sansthapanarthaya, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So these are the three reasons why God appears on the planet or anywhere. Okay. The most important among these is Paritranaya Sadhunam. Because Vinashaya cha Dushkritam, he can do even through his agents. He doesn't need to come himself. Okay. And to do Dharma Sanstapana, he can also send his agents to establish principles of law and order. But Paritranaya Sadhunam, which means the happiness that the devotees get, that cannot be got through agents. Isn't it? You as a father, when your son will go to college, if he sends a friend home during summer vacation, instead of me coming, I'm sending my friend. My dear father, you enjoy with my friend. Will you like it? The only thing that will give you happiness is when your own son comes for the vacation. Correct? If he wants to, send you some money, let's say when you are old and he's earning, whether he comes and gives the money or he sends the money through a, electronic transfer, you still get the money. That is fine. That he can do in many ways, but the enjoyment he can only do with you. And when the Lord comes to Paritranaya Sadhunam, he also glorifies his devotees. So Arjun became a very famous warrior. Oh my God, such a, He killed all these people, and if Krishna could have just killed every Duryodhana and everyone, Arjuna would not have been so famous. So the Lord wants to see his devotees get all the name and fame. And the Lord takes a back seat. He took the ultimate back seat in Mahabharata. He became a driver, chauffeurer. It's not a very prestigious position, so to say. And that too, he said, I will not fight. So all the glory he gave away to his devotees. So that is the reason why he did not do it. Sometimes he does it himself. Okay. Anything else?
So I heard somewhere like whole Mahabharata was created so that Lord Krishna gave Gita to the Kali Yuga.
There are multiple reasons for Mahabharata to occur. One of them is Bhagavad Gita, a very important reason, but there are many more reasons. Anything related to our discussion of chapter 2? Anything online?
Just a related question to what they asked. So in Treta Yuga, he fought himself the war.
As Lord Rama?
As Lord Rama.
No, he didn't fight himself. He had a huge army to assist him.
Right, but
he was the leader of the army. Yes, sure.
In Dwapar Yuga, if he had Arjuna and the Pandavas represent.
Sure. Okay.
So what is his role going to be in Kali Yuga?
No, so in Mahabharata was not the only war, by the way, when Lord Krishna appeared. He fought 18 battles with Jarasandha. He was the leader at that time. So that's not, and those were equally fierce battles with Jarasandha, where he had his whole army and everything, and Lord Krishna was fighting. So, and he fought so many times himself as the leader. So there is no such thing that, oh, he was the leader, now he was. So what? There's no such sort of a progression here. The Lord appears in Kali Yuga. Finally, ultimately, at the end of Kali Yuga, he'll appear as Kaliki Avatar to restart the process of Satyuga. Yes?
So it says that. So.
And that will be the last question, okay? I don't see any questions online, and then we will end.
Does karma play a role in? What's the point of knowledge if you can't use it in the next life?
So the material knowledge. So your question is, what's the point of knowledge if you can't use it in the next life? Spiritual knowledge stays with you. How it stays with you and how you regain it in the next life, we will see in 6th chapter. Okay? You automatically, there's a treasure map. You find it. Hold on. And if your question is about spiritual knowledge, material knowledge, what use is it if you can't use it in the next life? You use it in this life. That's it. Anything material is limited to our material life. When our material life ends, anything that we have accumulated ends with that. Okay, so that's the answer. The use of material knowledge is limited to this life, and it provides good benefit in this life. You know, if you're padhe likhe banoge, bade aadmi banoge, every father says, beta padh likh lo, bade aadmi banoge. So that's the benefit of this life. And in the spiritual knowledge, for next life, it has zero benefit. Next life, you could be a, I don't know, somebody who just plays all the time and doesn't read and doesn't do anything. And then you're like, struggling later in your life. Spiritual knowledge continues. And how you find it, we'll discuss in chapter 6. All right, we'll end here. If there are more questions in the room or anything, we can take it after we have closed the call. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Hare.
And those of you who posted questions on the chat, also raise your hand so you can ask your question. So a good strategy will be to post your question, but simultaneously raise your hand as well. Thank you. Hare Krishna.